All right, everybody. This is the final chapter in the section that we are reading that has James and Sam in it. And the section that we're reading this whole time has been called Operation Tonga, which happened in World War II. And this last section that we're going to be reading is called When Day. And if you recall, there was a point in this book where we had a chapter called If Day. I don't have a clue. Going to find out here in just moments if they are related in some way. So here we go. Allies by Alan Gratz. James stood in the empty kitchen, covering Sam with his Bren gun. Sam flung open the door to the chateau's basement and jumped back. Nothing. No shouts, no bullets, no grenades, just a set of wooden stairs disappearing down into darkness. Upstairs, James heard nervous scuffling and then a relieved cry of, "All clear!" The first floor had been empty too. If there were any German soldiers in the house, they were in the basement. "What am I doing here?" James asked for the millionth and fourth time. "You're going down there first," Sam said. "What? You go down there first." Sam shook his head. "I am the senior officer." "We're both lance corporals," James protested. "Well, I made corporal before you did. By 1 week. So I order you to go down first because I am 1 week your senior officer," said Sam. "And also, I'm afraid of the dark." "Oh, that's low, Sam, real low." James sighed. He'd hated going down into the basement of his own house since he was a boy. Still did, truth be told. The creaky stairs, the cobwebs, the dark shadows, the damp chill. Once his younger brother had locked him down there as a prank, and he'd sprained his wrist hammering on the door in his panic to be let out. The memory sent a shiver down his back, and he felt a gnawing pinch in his stomach. The only time he'd ever been that scared again was when Marvin Lennox and his gang had chased him through the streets of Winnipeg on If Day. And today, of course. But the other soldiers were waiting for the all clear. Chest heaving, James lifted his Bren gun again and inched toward the door. He peered down, trying to see, but it was too dark. A light switch had been wired to the wall just inside the door, and arm shaking, he slowly shifted his left hand from his gun to flip it. Nothing. There was no bulb, or no electricity, or both. James moved on to the landing at the top of the stairs, waiting for his eyes to adjust. He tried to tiptoe down the steps, back pressed to the wall on his right, but the treads were just as old and creaky as his basement stairs back in Winnipeg. They gave him away with every shift of his weight. Forget sneaking around, James thought. If there was a German waiting to shoot him down there, he couldn't have telegraphed his arrival better if he'd marched down crashing cymbals together. "Is anybody down there?" he called. "Geb auf," he added, using what little German he remembered from their training to order whoever was down there to surrender. James was afraid his quaking legs would go out from under him if he didn't move, and he rushed the rest of the way down the stairs. At the dirt floor, he backed into a corner. Cobwebs grabbed at his neck underneath his helmet, making him shudder. The damp, earthy smell of every basement everywhere in the world washed over him, and he felt his old panic rise up within him. There was a grimy window high up on the opposite wall, and in the brown light he saw movement in the far corner. His heart jumped into his throat, and he thrust his gun at whatever was there. "Who's there?" he said, his voice squeaking. A man and a woman came out of the shadows, and James's finger tightened on the trigger, but the man and the woman weren't soldiers. They were small, thin. The woman wore a threadbare dress, the man much patched trousers and shirt. Behind them, clinging to her mother's skirt, was a dark-haired little girl. James felt himself start to breathe again, but he was still panting, still scared. "Sam! Sam, get down here," James called. "There's French people down here." Sam hurried down to join him and began speaking to the family in French. The trio's eyes lit up, and the father leaped forward to shake first Sam's hand and then James's hand, clutching at him like he was a man falling off of a cliff. "He's the groundskeeper, and his wife is the cook," Sam translated. They say that there are no more Germans here. The soldiers all went outside to man the defenses. Before Sam could finish speaking, the woman took James's face in her hands, kissed him on both cheeks, tears rolling down her face. She hugged him tight, and James felt embarrassment creeping up his cheeks. The woman let him go at last and did the same thing all over again to Sam. James's eyes had begun to adjust to the darkness, and now he saw the 3 straw mats on the floor, the small table with a nub of an extinguished candle melted down on it, the 3 empty bowls. They're not just hiding down here, James realized. They live down here. They serve the Nazis like slaves while the Germans eat and sleep and live upstairs. Let them get out of here, James said. If he'd been scarred by being locked in the basement once as a kid, he couldn't imagine how this family must feel. They would never want to go near a basement again. The woman held a hand up and sent the daughter scurrying away after something. She came back a moment later with an old bottle of wine. They've been hiding this from the Germans, Sam explained after the woman said something to him in French. Tell them we'll drink it upstairs, James said, together. The father kept shaking their hands and the mother kept giving them kisses, but James and Sam managed to get the family started up the stairs. As they climbed, the little girl slipped her hand into James's hand. She smiled down at her. He smiled down at her and squeezed her hand, and in that moment, James understood. France was a country where if day had come true. All those things that they had pretended had happened in Winnipeg, the Nazis invading, the people's rights and property taken from them, people imprisoned and enslaved, those things had actually happened here. Seeing men in Nazi costumes marching down the cobblestone streets of the old market had moved James to enlist. But the threat hadn't been real. Not in Winnipeg, not to Canada. He and Sam and all the other soldiers had known that, the same way they knew France had really been invaded by the Nazis, but France was half a world away. Who cared what happened to France as long as it didn't happen to Canada? That's what he had thought then, what he had thought just about an hour ago at the gatehouse when the Nazis had been shooting at him. But Henry Shadow and his missing parents, the Allied planes dropping bombs on everyone in Normandy, friend or foe, this family living like prisoners in the basement of the chateau in the space of just a few short hours, James had seen what happened when if day became when day. Nobody should have to live like this under the boot of Nazi rule anywhere in the world, James thought. A deep, freeing calm came over James, and suddenly he understood why he was there. He was going to keep fighting the Nazis as hard as he could until all of France was liberated. And then he was going to move on to free Belgium and the Netherlands and everywhere else the Nazis had conquered. He was going to free every last country where if day had become horribly true. But he couldn't do it alone. He needed Sam and the other Canadian soldiers and the English and American soldiers who were to follow them. Like the kids back in Winnipeg coming together to stand up to Marvin Lennox, it would take all of them to face down Hitler, the biggest bully in the world. James saw Canadian paratroopers swarming the chateau when he came back up from the basement. The French family was quickly handed off to the company medic. We moving on? James asked Sam. Now that he knew why he was here, he was eager to get to it. Another soldier heard James and shook his head. Radio tower's been destroyed, and Captain sent some men to blow up the bridge. So, we're supposed to stay and defend this position until the boys come up off the beach. If the boys come up off the beach, Sam said quietly. They have to make it, James said. We're here for a reason. All right, everybody. That is the end of Operation Tonga. And the next one that we're going to be getting onto is called Operation Neptune, June 6, 1944, 6:30 a.m., Omaha Beach. There's a question posted for you to do today. Please answer it to the best of your ability and submit that and get all of your other homework done. Have a great day.